Welcome back to Beyond the Veil, Season 1, Episode 4, The Maiden Voyage of the Titanic. The Titanic sailed and sank in 1912. Shortly after that, in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. And in this episode, we're going to cover that and more and discuss what each of us have found. But first, we're going to begin with a brief history overview, some interesting findings and claims of reincarnated souls who remember being on the ship, and then each of us relaying our independent findings through our intuitive analysis of the events at large. This is a story that even 100 years later is still shrouded in mystery. The Titanic, one of 4 luxury cruise lines owned by White Star Line and backed by J.P. Morgan, was the world's largest ship in our history. What happened? What went wrong to cause the largest ship and the largest loss of life to ever occur at sea? Join us on a voyage of discovery as we delve into this mystery. We know from research that the British and the Americans both conducted extensive inquiries to figure out how this happened, because they too smelled foul play. We know that the captain's log was never found, and we are told that this was a tragic accident, negligence at best, that should have been avoided. But what if something nefarious was at play the whole time? What if there were reasons, until now unknown, for some wanting this to happen? But why? And who? We will explore all of this and more. So get your coffee, get cozy, take some notes if you wish, as we uncover the mysteries of the Titanic destruction at play.
Very well.
Errors. It's very hard because we were advised not to wake him up out of it, so we would have to kind of go through it with him. He would go to bed just fine. He would go to sleep, but then you could hear him thrashing around in his bedroom.
He would sweat, cry, scream. By the time the nightmare was done, his pajamas were literally soaked through.
And then he would bolt. He would just fly out of bed, and he would come running down the hallway, go running into rooms, and you had to make sure he didn't go down the stairs. It was horrible because we didn't know if it was ever going to go away. I felt completely helpless.
During
in half, and you can see all the different rooms and everything. He knew the ship. He knew it by heart. You can't learn that by watching the movie. The movie actually was more about a love story, and Jamie was completely distraught over the fact that the people in the boiler room died first. Like it was his fault that they were trapped.
I figured he'd seen the movie, which was a popular movie at the time, and maybe that's why he was into it. But the form of obsession that he had with it, I knew wasn't normal. So I was a little creeped out.
He started talking about the accident itself and how it shouldn't have happened, that there were mistakes, there were corners cut, and the men in the boiler rooms should not have been trapped. And he would cry about it.
He was obsessed with what happened to that ship and what happened to the people on that ship, and kept saying things like, it shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't have happened. So he was obsessed with the tragedy of the Titanic. When it started to get really obvious that this was all he wanted to deal with, I did start to think maybe he needed some sort of therapy about it. Like maybe he was so traumatized by the movie and we just didn't realize it, that this was his way of working out that trauma, but it just seems so unlikely. especially considering all the other things that kids are exposed to these days. Why would the sinking of a ship 100 years ago be that upsetting?
It was horrible.
Titanic.
When he was 5 years old, he was telling me some of the mistakes that they made in building the ship. Using iron instead of steel was wrong. He was 5. He was telling me these things. And he said that when the ship hit the iceberg, the emergency doors trapped everybody in the boiler room. He would sob and say, "They died first, Mama. They died first. You don't understand." And I would try to comfort him and say, "Oh, no, honey, I understand." And then he would wail and he'd say, no, you don't understand. It shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have died that way. That was a mistake.
Now I want to share another clip.
Atlantic now, because we're going to look at one of the most famous shipwrecks of all time, the focus of all those documentaries and Hollywood movies. But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
The year was 1985. A young oceanographer named Robert Ballard descended into the icy depths of the North Atlantic. What he found, nearly 2.5 miles beneath the surface, stunned the world. After 7 decades of mystery, the wreck of the Titanic, the so-called unsinkable ship, finally revealed herself. Broken, twisted, but unmistakably real. Ballard became a legend overnight, the man who solved one of history's greatest puzzles. But today, 4 decades later, Robert Ballard is nearing the end of his life. And with time running short, he has broken his silence. He admits that what he saw at the wreck was far darker than the sanitized legend the world has been fed. Evidence not of a noble tragedy, but of greed, arrogance, and perhaps even conspiracy. This is not just history. This is Robert Ballard's confession. Robert Ballard's life was shaped by the sea. Born in 1942, he joined the U.S. Navy during the Cold War, where he trained in sonar and submarine navigation. Yet while his peers dreamed of command, Ballard's ambition ran deeper. He wanted to uncover the mysteries of the ocean itself, to reach places no human eye had ever seen. In the 1970s, Ballard pioneered the use of remotely operated vehicles. These robotic cameras could survive where human divers could not, enduring the immense pressure of the deep. Many doubted the approach, but Ballard was convinced machines, not men, would unlock the secrets of the abyss. One mystery consumed him above all: Titanic. The ship was more than steel and rivets. When she launched in 1912, she was marketed as unsinkable, the crown jewel of human engineering. But on her maiden voyage, she struck an iceberg and vanished, dragging more than 1,500 souls to their deaths. The tragedy shocked the world. Yet almost immediately, the story was softened. Corporate negligence, ignored warnings, and design flaws were buried under a cleaner legend: a noble ship felled by chance. For over 70 years, Titanic's resting place remained hidden, allowing myth to overtake fact. To Ballard, that absence wasn't romantic, it was infuriating. He wanted truth, not legend. In 1985, backed by the U.S. Navy, his team finally found her. Out of the pitch-black seafloor, Titanic's bow emerged like a ghost, intact yet broken, majestic yet shattered. The discovery electrified the world. Headlines hailed Ballard as a hero. He had solved history's greatest maritime riddle. But Ballard knew something others didn't. The wreck didn't simply tell the story of a tragic accident. It whispered of negligence, of arrogance, of decisions made in boardrooms and on decks that doomed an entire ship. Titanic was not just a victim of an iceberg. The wreck itself suggested human failure. And Ballard carried that truth with him. The first descent to Titanic was unlike anything Robert Ballard had ever experienced. His robotic cameras slipped down into the silent blackness of the Atlantic, 2.5 miles beneath the waves. The descent felt endless. There was no sound, no light, only the crushing weight of water pressing from every side. Then, out of the void, shapes began to appear. A debris field, scattered coal, twisted metal. And finally, the bow of Titanic, rising from the seabed like a ghost frozen in time. The sight was haunting. Rusticles, strange icicle-like formations of iron-eating bacteria, dripped down her sides. The ship's anchor chains still hung in place. The railings, though bent and broken, looked as though passengers might still lean on them. But what struck Ballard most was not the grandeur, it was the silence. Titanic was not a relic of engineering anymore. She was a grave. The cameras drifted across the seafloor. Shoes lay side by side, where people had once fallen together. Clothing still clung to fragments of luggage. The personal belongings of passengers were scattered like whispers of lives interrupted. Ballard called it a cemetery, and he was right. This was not just history. This was death preserved. Yet alongside the sorrow, Ballard noticed something else. Titanic did not sink the way history had claimed. Survivor testimonies had long insisted the ship went down intact, sliding into the depths in one final, graceful descent. But the wreck showed otherwise. Titanic had split apart violently, scattering debris for miles. Her hull plating had peeled away, rivets popped loose, steel twisted into grotesque angles. This was no quiet surrender to the sea. It was a catastrophic, structural failure. Ballard understood immediately what that meant. The Titanic had not simply fallen victim to an iceberg. She had been betrayed by her own design. Weak rivets, brittle steel, shortcuts in construction, all of it written across the shattered hull. The evidence pointed to a darker truth. Titanic had been doomed long before she struck the ice. And in that moment, Ballard felt the weight of it. The ship was not only a graveyard, it was a crime scene. When Robert Ballard...
Interesting that he would use that wording, right? That it was
Yeah.
a crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did my own intuitive searching, I actually did deeper research, and I learned that there was another ship called the Olympic, that the same Captain Smith and the same 5 officers and crew of over 200 men also took out on its maiden voyage. And I think it was a test, if you will, of what kind of structural damage can be done from hitting certain things. Now, that doesn't mean that I think that Captain Smith was negligent, because I don't feel that way. But I do feel like some of his officers and part of his crew certainly were in the know on this. Because that particular ship called the Olympic, it struck a smaller ship first on its maiden voyage, and that did some damage, but not really enough to cause anything traumatic to happen. So then several days or hours later, it struck another ship, a larger ship, and tore its hull and breached the hull to fill it with water. They managed to get it back to shore. It didn't sink, but I think it was a test run for the larger Titanic ship that was to have all of the bankers and the investors on board. And I do feel like this was a conspiracy to eliminate and silence the opposition to the Federal Reserve. Also, I discovered that in the course of leaving France, the port of France, and heading back toward New York across the Atlantic, that the device that's used to navigate, that the captain and the pilots would use to navigate either by the stars at night or the horizon during the day, was altered, and it was off by a few degrees. So when the captain did finally send out an SOS through the telegraph, he was actually telling them a position that was 13 miles away from where they actually were. So I feel like that was tampered with intentionally. I've also learned that there was a ship 19 miles from them called the Californian, where the pilot of that ship, the captain, excuse me, actually turned off the SOS telegraph for the night. He sort of just put anchors down and stayed where he was at in his spot for the night, turned off his SOS telegraph stuff, and several of his crew actually reported during the British and the American inquisitions on this that they saw the flares coming off of the Titanic, and they were told to stand down and not go to investigate it. So I feel like that pilot also, or that captain also, was involved in this. And that involvement would be a direct link to the White Star cruise line that was their bosses. I also learned that the aristocrat that I saw in my own, which I'll get into later, but I saw this aristocrat man who was very sneaky and mischievous in a lot of the stuff that went on the Titanic. I later learned that his name is Ismay, and he was actually the president of White Star Line. And he was on board the Titanic, and he is the one that's in charge of all of the captains and their crews. So essentially, he's their boss. And, I just feel like there was a lot of fuckery involved in this, a whole lot of fuckery from what I have found in just the investigation part of it that corroborates a lot of what I saw in my intuitive stuff. He was also the man that was in charge of all of the first class boarding list and all of the entertainment for them, which again was the majority of those people. The first class people were the bankers and the investors that were opposing the Federal Reserve idea. And then, of course, in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. And immediately after the creation of the Federal Reserve, there were 2 amendments made to our Constitution, which then brought into law our having to pay personal income tax, which was something that all of them would have also been opposed to. So you can see where there's a plan at play here. We're going to begin with Michael and his findings. Excuse me, Missy. Sorry, my bad. We're going to start with Missy and her findings and then go to Michael next.
All right. So I started off my meditation, and mine consisted of basically what was going on inside the ship. My first hit was I heard dogs barking and whining, which I was kind of like, I don't even understand that, but I wrote it down anyways. I heard music playing. I heard muttered screams. I seen mail floating all over the ship, like lots of letters and things like that in this room. They were like everywhere. And then I also seen that the communication system was sabotaged, like it wasn't working when they first boarded the ship. But I seen a couple people working on it to get it to work. So it wasn't supposed to be working, and all of a sudden it was working. And then I seen a secret meeting. But I don't know what the meeting was. It was just like behind closed doors. So after I wrote all this down, I wanted to try to go back and try to research it a little bit, because what I got didn't make sense to me, because these are things that I never heard of before. So in my research, I found that there was actually a dog kennel aboard the Titanic. It had, on the night that it sank, it had 7 dogs on it. Only 3 of the dogs lived, which is kind of weird. And then the music was playing like through the whole thing, but it felt like to me that during the music playing, there was a lot of muffled screams, like it was almost trying to hide it. like when it first started, it was just playing music just to kind of like hide screams, because I guess they didn't want people to know what was going on yet. Mass panic. Then on the mail part of it, I found out that the ship was actually a Royal Mail ship. It carried, on that night, it had 3,000 bags of mail. They had their own post office. They had 5 clerks that they sorted and tended to the mail, and the Britain and U.S. would go back and forth with their mail. That's how they got their
Really?
mail. Yeah, it was really weird. And then I have something else written down, and I'm just going to keep it to myself for now. I want to see if anybody else picks up on it, but it's on my paper and it's circled. So I just want to kind of leave it there because this doesn't make sense to me at all. So I thought maybe I might got a little confused. So I'm just going to hold off on that. And if I hear something that pertains to that, then I'm going to speak up. But that's what I found. I didn't get like anything about the steel or, any of that type of stuff. I just got what was going on inside the ship.
Okay. And did you say that you researched that thing about the dog kennels in the mail?
Yes, it was actually, there was actually a post office on board, and it had 5, they had 5 clerks that worked there. They sorted their mail and prepared the mail to deliver, and it would come from Britain to US, US to Britain. It was called the RMS. Actually, if you look it up, it says RMS in front of that Titanic, which is the Royal Mail Service. And they even had a swimming pool. They had all different types of things for like the elite people, and one of the things was dog kennels for their dogs, which I had never even heard of that before.
See, me
Wow.
neither, and that blows my mind. And why was it called Royal? Because I thought this was an American
I don't
liner.
know. I have no idea. It was just what it was called, the RMS Titanic, which was Royal Mail Ship.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. All right, great job. And I do have a clip, at least one clip of Jen's that I'll go ahead and share because she couldn't be here today before Mike does his. She had sent me 2 things, but they didn't get sent to Messenger, so I can't play both of them.
I did some numerology for the Titanic, and we got 3 important dates. We've got the completion date, which is 5/31/1911, the launch date, which is 4/10/1912, and the date of the sinking 2 days later on 4/12/1912. Just to be clear, for the purpose of this video, we'll only be discussing the nefarious or darker interpretations of these numbers. Starting with the completion date, we have the number 5. In this case, it represents agent of chaos. It disrupts order and creates confusion. It's a saboteur, a trickster, and a gambler. And it weaponizes freedom into weakness. It's also associated with sudden disaster. Like, I mean, come on. Okay, so the date 31 reduces to 4. For those that don't know, a number is reduced by adding its individual digits together. In this case, 4 is a representative of a rigid structure and can represent something that is secretly a trap. This trap can often be a trap of bureaucracy, causing feelings of being so tightly caged in that you can't get out. Now, the year 1911 reduces to 3. Here, 3 is referred to as the number of spectacles. It represents illusion and something that is destined to collapse. Moving on to the launch, we come back to the 4 in both the month and of the year 1912, which also reduces to 4. That brings us to the day which is 10. In its nefarious context, 10 is said to carry an illusion of invincibility. And that just blew my mind because, I mean, hello. Finally, we come to the date of the disaster itself. Again, we have the 4s with the month and the year, but this time we move forward 2 days to the 12th of April 1912. And again, we encounter 3. So just so y'all know, the nefarious meanings of numbers can often come from an imbalance or overemphasis of the positive aspects of the numbers. As an example, overemphasis on the structure and stability of 4 can lead to inflexibility. It can manifest itself in stubbornness and an inability to adapt. Likewise, an imbalance of the positive aspects of 3, like creativity and joy, can lead to adverse traits like pride or hubris and an inability to see one's own faults. So I feel like the numerology definitely lined up with what I got intuitively. Can't wait to see what the rest of y'all got.
All right. Very good. And I'm sorry that I don't have her other clip to share for her intuitive part of it. Mike?
Wow. Yeah, so I placed myself on the ship. You know how I like to do. I like to place myself on comments. I like to place myself directly on the main objects of what we're talking about here. And I knew what was going to happen. This was a tough one for me. I put myself on the ship, and I seen the chaos. I seen the fear. I was looking through the eyes of an ex-Navy man myself, and whenever we had drills on the ship, we would dog zebra the doors, which means we would shut these watertight, waterproof doors to help with the buoyancy in case we get hit with a torpedo, that will stay afloat long enough to have least casualties. So when I placed myself on this ship in my remote viewing, I was looking at the ship in the perspective as if I was partly the creator of the design of the bulkheads and the doors themselves. And what I seen was not with the bulkheads, not with the watertight doors. The problem wasn't with the doors, but I seen the problem being with the walls, the bulkheads themselves that attach the watertight doors. So to me, it was just like a half-ass, a combination, an accumulation, so to speak, of many, many things. And when we were watching that video, they were talking about how a lot of these mistakes all happened in boardrooms and things like that. And that's exactly how I feel. It was an accumulation of a lot of things that brought this ship down. It wasn't just missing uh, binoculars in the crow's nest. You know what I mean? Because that was one of them, right? Was there was no binoculars in the crow's nest for the lookouts, but you can't blame the entire accident on some lookouts. You know, when you have the helmsman, the quarter helmsman, you've got people that are trained to drive these ships. This ship was doomed from the start. From what I gathered, this ship actually hit another ship called the SS New York when it left the what was it, New Hampshire? I know it was in France where it left, right, on its maiden voyage, but it actually hit
Okay.
another ship. I believe it was called the SS New York. It wasn't a
I
big
didn't know that.
it wasn't a huge, gigantic crash. It was just probably a nudge or a nick or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's a huge omen. for
Yeah.
maritime vessels. I mean, if you're in the sailor world, in the sailor business, that's a huge,
Yeah.
huge omen right there. And I also learned that there was a small fire that took place. Of course, it was a coal fire, which was something that was kind of a normal thing that happened with coal
Right.
ships. You would have
Yeah.
your typical fires and stuff.
Hmm.
And from what I heard, they put it out, you know. But there were some theories afterwards that that fire wasn't so easily put out. There's a theory out there that this fire became uncontrollable and it forced the ship to sail quick across the ocean. And
Oh.
that's what caused that 36 seconds of I only got 37 seconds to steer this ship out of the way from this iceberg. Well, the ship was going too damn fast. So it's an accumulation of a lot of things. Um, my number one thing is I went with my gut for the most part of this assignment, and I knew it had something to do with the Federal Reserve. Okay, I've had my whole life to think about this. I didn't need to go and remote view and go through my tarot cards at this time. I didn't need to do that. Um, I
Yeah.
knew why this was happening, and it had everything to do with J.P. Morgan, Mr. John Pierpont himself. There was a few other people, of course, that were on that ship that were directly opposed to creating this Federal Reserve. And like Kelly said, after that happened, guess what? We're paying taxes now. One of the most ridiculous things in the world. And this is where we're at right now. This has been steered. This has been created. Uh, it had started before the ship took off. It started in the beginning, um, and there's even a theory that its sister ship, the Olympic, was that was an interesting story that I heard Kelly talking about it. Like they took that damn thing out for a test run.
Mhm.
From what I heard, there's also a theory that some of the damage that was done to that ship, for insurance reasons, they went ahead and just swapped the ships. So the Titanic was actually the Olympic, and the Olympic was actually the Titanic. So I thought that was really interesting. And
Oh, wow.
listening to what Jennifer was talking about the illusion, of the structural integrity of this vessel, that's what it was all about. This ship was supposed to be unsinkable. So the cockiness behind it, the
Yeah.
the little office meetings before it, and the initial voyage. I mean, the lifeboats, they didn't have enough lifeboats, okay? And each
Yeah.
lifeboat was supposed to be designed to hold up to about, what was it, 65
60.
people
Yeah.
each. Not one
Yeah.
of them was filled to capacity. Some of them went out with like just
Just
trickled
just
12,
10, 10 or 12
people.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just a complete mess.
Yeah.
It was more than just one thing, absolutely. But I'm telling you, this wasn't even the beginning of our government steering these false flags. Uh, Unfortunately, this wasn't even the beginning. But it
Mhm.
would blow a lot of people's mind if you told them that. And I'm trying to blow your mind right now by letting you know that that's exactly what happened in this case. This was a politically steered event that has placed us to where we're at right now, this mess that we're in. Luckily, people are waking up and we're starting to see everything for what it's at now, but it's almost like too little too late. We're getting old already. We've been paying taxes for a long time. They've been killing us with this for a long time. And it's also made this hard for me because they made a movie about this, which was a very good movie.
Mhm.
Hell, they haven't even made a movie about 9/11 yet that I can think of. But this one, it was tough for me to go in and out of remote views, but it was interesting that I was looking at the ship in the perspective of a creator and looking at some of the physical flaws of my work. And what I found was I don't know if he was the designer, but there was an engineer that was on board. I think his name was Thomas Andrew. He was a chief designer.
Yeah, that's who the little boy was in the clip I played at the beginning.
That
He
okay,
gave he
I
gave his
had
mom
no
that
idea.
name. Yeah.
No, that's amazing to me because I was looking at it in the perspective of somebody that had something to do with the structural integrity of the building design element, specifically the bulkheads, which in maritime talk and navy talk, that's just the wall, right?
Hmm.
A bathroom is called the head. We have our own language out there, and we have our own
Yeah.
maritime language out there in the water.
Yes, you do.
They called
Hmm.
us some salty dogs out there, haze gray and underway. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
that sailor terminology that still sticks with me. And I was focused on them bulkheads, which is the walls. And from what I studied, it wasn't the watertight doors, it was the bulkheads, it was the walls. Water was able to pour in from the top. Yeah, the doors did their job, but that doesn't do you any good if the water's coming in from the top of the walls. So
Hmm.
yeah, oh God.
Yeah, and that was part of the young boy's trauma and tragedy of remembering, because he said that he was begging the investors to allow them to use better materials because this wasn't going to withstand any kind of traumatic impacts. And then he was, supposed to be on board. That was his job, was to be on board the ship for its maiden voyage because he was the top engineer. So he went down with the ship too. So yeah, I mean, and I get it with your Navy talk, because I was raised by a father that was captain of the riverboats. He was captain of the Coast Guard. He was a captain in the Merchant Marines. So he raised me talking ship lingo. Our kitchen was our galley. you know, Go clean the galley, right? Um, I mean, he would bark out orders at us like we were part of his crew for cleaning the house or mopping the floor. Go swab the deck.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, it's not a deck. You're not on the boat. So I totally get it. It's something that you kind of live and breathe when you're a seaman.
Yeah.
Um, so I totally get it. Also, ironically, I don't know if Missy noticed, but while you were talking, Mike, I actually realized that you look a lot like Captain Smith that went down with the Titanic.
Ah.
I did notice that.
And for me, it's interesting because my dad was Captain Smith. And when I was first delving into all this and learned the captain's name, I kept seeing blurs of my dad intertwined with this. And I was like, okay, this is just because of my own experience with my dad and who he was. And he's a Smith and he's a captain and all this. But then actually, the further I got into it, I was like literally being shown that not only was I on board that Titanic, but so was my dad. And he very well could have been the Captain Smith that went down with the ship and then 20 years later reincarnated as another man who became a Captain Smith. And of course, we already know the story there. 10 years later, he reincarnated as one of my children, documented at the age of 3. She told me so, with all the boat lingo included, right? Which was insane to me. Um, but I really fully felt like I was there. I really experienced this tragedy. This was so much different for me than when I'm just intuitively tapping in. Were you done, by the way?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I just want to make sure I'm not like overstepping.
Not at all.
It wasn't like when I'm intuitive, because intuitively when I'm in it, and some people will understand what I mean by this, you can hear things, you can smell things, you can taste things, you can touch them, but it's not through your eyes, right? You know that you're looking through someone else's eyes. someone else's experience. That's a very clear distinction. But when I was doing the Titanic, I was there, guys. I was fully there. Like I vividly felt the boat rear up where the rudders were out of the water above the ocean, and I got thrown off the boat in a backwards fall, hit that water, and the sharpness of that water, I felt it go through my body, and then the piercing ice cold freezing temperature of the Atlantic stung my body like 1,000 needles. And I know in this lifetime, I've said this many times to people like you all that know me, I absolutely hate being cold. It's physically painful for me to be cold. Everything in my body wants to seize up when I'm cold. It's like my whole body is having a spasm, or I'm having the bends, right? Like when you're in water and you get the bends. It feels like that for me when I get cold. And maybe that's why. And I also have not a fear of heights, but a fear of falling. And this could also be a part of that. As well, my dad was very adamant from the time I was little bitty, all of his kids, to make sure that we could swim, we could tread water for hours if we needed to, and that we could save someone else in water if we needed to. He was adamant at teaching us that. I literally took swimming lessons every single summer for the first 13 years of my life. Every single summer. He started us out as babies learning how to swim. And that is something that I've always loved. I've always loved water. I've always loved the boats. I've always, I mean, I can tie every damn knot that a sailor could tie because my dad taught me every knot. I can pull the sails. I can do it all. I can steer the ship, everything. Like I know how to use the little thing that looks at the stars and checks the horizon. And I know the stars and their alignment at night because he taught us the astronomy. Like it's bred into me now at this point. But in that instance, I was a passenger. I didn't know those things. I didn't know anything except that I wanted to be on that boat, to be in New York and come to America and have a new life. I don't think I had kids. I don't think I was married. I was just a young woman going on an adventure. And it ended tragically before I ever got to the shores of America. But I truly felt it this time. And I like Missy says my papers always look like mad scientist work because look, I scribble everywhere. I literally write things everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Mine looks similar.
Yeah. So first I just want to show you my drawing of the ship because I actually, as the ship bucks up out of the water and starts to go down, I saw it break in half, but also splinter from like the center down. From the center down the hull, it just splintered and pieces flew everywhere. There were parts flying off the boat as I'm falling. I'm seeing parts of the boat flying around. This was not just an easy, we just sunk in. It was dramatic. And this is my drawing. I'm not an artist, but that's the front of the boat with a big split in it there. And all this extra stuff in the center is the splintering. And the backside, I saw it. Where's my finger? I saw it literally ripping the whole middle of the boat on the back end of it. Like I saw it just ripping, and it was horrific sounds. The roaring and the moaning of the metal and everything breaking apart was this tremendously loud sound. But speaking of sounds, to begin with, I felt that some were sleeping, mainly the people that were in third class or second class. The majority of them were already in bed. They weren't first class. They weren't exclusive. They didn't get the extra stuff that was going on up top on the poop deck or whatever, right? Like they had to go on to their quarters at a certain time. So they were in bed asleep. The captain also had went to his quarters to go to sleep for the night. So he was asleep when this first started. And when he asked for the damages to be assessed, he was told that it was no big deal. But I heard music. I heard music still playing up on the top deck. And second class and first class, or excuse me, second class and third class had been locked in. The door that allows them up the stairwell to the next level had been locked.
Okay, hold up. Because I told you that I had a vision that I couldn't explain. I have a key being hidden, and there's where I wrote it down at.
Wow.
So could that be the key to the doors?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus.
Because I saw the doors being locked so that they couldn't get out. And the boy in the reincarnated thing saying that the boiler room is the first people that died, he's absolutely correct in that, because that's what I got too. But also the doors that you're talking about, Mike, that they can pull down to shut off any type of water coming in, the boat taking on water,
Yep.
had been reopened. Someone had ordered them to be shut, but they were reopened, and it allowed it to come in even more. Now, I also knew that the boat was speeding at full speed. It was going full steam ahead. And I didn't understand that until you mentioned that there was a fire in the boiler room that caused damage to the controls of how fast the boat goes. That makes more sense to me, because this is actually the reason that it took on water so quickly, is because it was going fast. And as you're going fast, I mean, you would know, you're a Navy guy. You're just pulling the water in quicker. You're taking on water faster if you're moving faster. If they'd have slowed the boat down or came to a complete stop, they'd have had more time to get everybody out. And especially with the doors, if the doors were left down. But someone raised the doors back up, and I researched that and found out that that is a fact, that someone had went down and raised the doors back up. But some of the people that testified of the crew claimed that they did that to get out hoses and different things for trying to do the septic or the sump pump or whatever. But that doesn't even make sense to me. Also, another thing is that I was shown that on these lifeboats, even though there weren't enough of them, like you said, the first few barely had anybody in them. They weren't filled even near to capacity, not even halfway to capacity. But at the end of it all, when everyone that was alive was rescued by the other ship that came along, 200 of the crew survived. And I know from my dad being a captain of a boat, that's a no-no. Your crew, you do not get off your boat until every woman and child first, and then men that are just civilians are off and safe. You do not leave your boat. You go down with your boat if you have to. That is the law of the water.
Right.
That is like the rule of thumb.
Oh,
you
yeah.
go down with your boat.
Yep.
And 200 of those men survived. So when I learned that, it pissed me off. It absolutely pissed me off, because they should have never been on any of those lifeboats at all. There weren't enough to even take care of their occupants, right?
Yep.
Which is their cargo, right? Your precious
Yep.
cargo aboard your ship is what you are sworn an oath to defend.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that. They totally broke their oath. So that really made me mad. Also, one of those boats, I saw a boat full of men, all men, in my visions. And later, at doing some research, there was one boat that had 61 men in it, 61 men and 2 females. And that's it. 61 men. And they should never have been on that boat, right? All of those men. Because the rule is women and children first. Always. Right. That's always the rule.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know from my studies that there wasn't always enough women and children in that once in a certain area when they were going off into the lifeboats. So there was some occasions where they were like, okay, look, are we going to sit around and wait until because there was a lot of people locked away still, a lot of women, like you said,
Locked away,
Locked
there was
right?
away.
still women and
And that's
children
why.
locked away. So that's why there was some big groups of men that were like, okay, but you're right, that still shouldn't have happened. And it was an
Yep.
accumulation of a lot of stuff.
Yep. So I saw a secret meeting happening with the white star. I kept seeing a white star in a secret meeting, and I didn't know what that meant because I didn't know
Ah,
that was the name of the ship line at the
yep,
time
yep.
until I did the research, and I was like, oh, that makes sense to me why I keep seeing a white star. But
Oh
there
my
was a
God.
secret meeting. There were aristocrats, JP Morgan, some of the crew, and even some crew from the Californian they all took this meeting together, this secret meeting. So it was a plan, and the plan was definitely for world dominance or control, which is what we call New World Order today. And this is the long game for them, guys. And people need to realize that we've been on a long game with these evil SOBs for a long minute. Ever since we founded this country, we've been in a long game because we were the one piece of land that Rome couldn't conquer, right? To put it, you know, to put it out there in a phrase that people could understand. Rome, because Rome was known to conquer all the land, right? But it's really more than Rome. There's actually three heads to this beast, and I was shown a pyramid as well. I was shown a pyramid of three heads of the beast: the Vatican, the king and queen, and the fake Israel. And I'm just going to leave that there for now. That's another story. Um, but yeah, I was shown that from the third to the fifth floors were all locked in. So the people in the boiler room on the fifth level, the bottom level, actually drowned first, long before the boat ever went down. The people on the third floor also drowned long before the ship ever sunk. The people upstairs on the top deck were still partying and playing music that was drowning out the screams and the pleas of these people banging on doors, trying to get up the stairwell and get out because they were drowning. Um, there was an SOS sent to the Titanic to warn them of ice in the area. The aristocrat man is what I kept calling him in my visions, the aristocrat. He was the I mean, I could see him so clearly. He looked like such a weasel, sleazy kind of guy, walking around with his thumb in his little front pocket thing and trying to charm everybody, right? But he's just this sleazy weasel dick guy. But he's the one that actually intercepted the telegraph message for the SOS of saying, warning, there's ice out here. He took that note and he folded it up and he stuck it in his pocket, is what I saw. The closest ship to them, I saw that there was a ship near them that didn't come to rescue them. And then in my research, learned that was the Californian, who did actually turn off their SOS telegraph for the night and set down anchors to stay put. They are actually who sent the SOS, I later learned as well. They sent the message to the Titanic to let them know there was ice in the area, and they received a telegraph message back from someone that said, shut up.
What?
Yeah. Now, you're not going to just tell somebody, if they're not in the know on your plan, you're not going to just reply with shut up, right? Because they're going to think that's alarming and they're going to tell somebody else.
Right.
But they literally just shut up and turned off their SOS machine, their telegraph machine. I mean, they clearly had to have been involved. Which later the British inquiry and the American inquiry both found the captain of the Californian to be guilty of negligence for not having his telegraph on to know when another boat was in distress to help, and for not allowing his crew to act on seeing the flares. Now, this aristocrat that I kept referring to, his name is actually Ismay, and he was convicted of murder. They convicted him of murder because they found out later that the boat that he got on, the lifeboat that he got on, it wasn't filled to capacity. And when the Titanic did actually roar up into the air and then sink, there were people thrown all out in the water everywhere, and 2 boats turned around and went back to get some people out of the water and save them. But he paid everyone on that boat 5-pound notes to not turn around and go back to get anybody.
Oh my
So
That's
gosh.
crazy.
he was convicted of murder
Wow.
for that. Um, and the boat was going full steam ahead. And I think I might have already said that. I couldn't understand why it would still be going full steam ahead, because anybody that knows anything about the water knows the first thing you're going to do when you hit something is slow down and assess the damage. At best, you're going to slow down. So why did they not slow down? I couldn't understand that. Why are they still going full steam ahead? But if there was a fire in the boiler room, that makes sense to me because they had no control over the power of the speed. Um, but I do question, why was an SOS not sent out sooner if that was the case? You know, if there was something in the throttle system that they couldn't control. Seems like to me somebody would have sent out an SOS a little sooner than when they did, because by the time they did that, they had less than 20 minutes before the boat went down. From the time of them sending the SOS and deploying the flares, within 20 minutes, the boat was, she was going under, you know, by that point. So that doesn't make sense to me. But I saw the doors were fully open and allowed the water to breach the hull and completely fill it. And then, like I said, I heard the roaring and the sounds of screams and the roaring of the boat tearing apart as the bow bucked and then buckled and broke. It. I mean, I can't even do justice to what I heard, because there is no sound that anybody has ever heard on earth that sounds like that. It was horrific. It was the loudest, most horrific sound ever, 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 ever. So that's what I've got. And also, I wanted to add some side notes to this, because I've always been drawn to lighthouses. I've always been drawn to Nova Scotia. I've always been drawn to boats and water and the story of the Titanic. Maritime law, I know like the back of my hand. I know all about captains on board of boats and vessels, right? I know all of this stuff, astronomy. And of course, my dad, was a captain, so he taught me a lot of those things. But he taught all 7 of us those things, and nobody was interested in it except me. I was absolutely obsessed with learning as much as I could, almost like I was panicked. And it never made sense to me until I actually experienced this doing this Titanic show with you all. Because I fully believe that it's because I was there, and I just didn't really ever think about that or consider that until I fully immersed myself into this story to find out more. And I honestly expected to like have dead people talk to me or something, but instead of that happening, it was my own personal story I was experiencing, which blew my mind. I later found out through research that the dead that they did recover was buried in Nova Scotia in the shape of a boat. All of the people with no names, that had no identity, were buried in Nova Scotia. I never knew that. Halifax, Nova Scotia, to be exact. So that I just found this to be very, very interesting. And I mean, what are the odds? Honestly, what are the odds or the likelihood that here I am doing a show with all of you, doing a deep dive on the Titanic.
Mhm.
And my dad was not only a captain of the riverboats and merchant marines and Coast Guard, his name was Captain Smith. I mean, it's just, and the lighthouses, Nova Scotia, the absolutely despising being cold, terrified of falling. I mean, just all of it. It's just so, it's kind of messed with me a little bit. I still haven't even totally processed it, you know? I was so emotional about it when it happened that I was literally sitting there crying, like I was experiencing it all over again. So that's what I've got.
Kelly, when you were talking about uh, the speed, like you didn't understand why, and then you heard about the small fire in the beginning, and then you're like, oh, maybe there was something mechanically wrong with the ship. From what I gathered, um, the choice for them to go fast was due to the fact that there was damage as time was going by because the fire was out of control. They were like, let's just
Uh-huh.
hurry up. They just went into a hurry up panic. And that's something you just don't do when there's, icebergs dead ahead.
Right. Right.
And
And
they
it's
did,
dark. It's pitch black. I mean, you can't see anything except the stars at
right.
night on the water.
And they did just barely miss a head-on collision. They actually steered clear of it and were almost damn near celebrating until they
Wow.
realized some stuff under the water line was damaged. And that's what the ticking time bomb started right there.
Yeah, I just don't understand why they didn't start putting these people on these lifeboats way ahead of time. Like they waited till the last possible minute to do so. Like that just blows my mind. I don't understand that.
Well, I think that was part of the plot, right? Because you're not going to save third class first. You're not going to save second class first. First class would be who you save first if you're looking at a caste system, right?
Right.
And the majority of first class were the bankers and the investors that didn't want the Federal Reserve. So they had to be able to go down, right? If that's your evil plot, they've got to be the ones that we make sure don't get through this.
Right. And I think a couple of them were a married couple. A couple of them financiers. They went up into their cabin and got dressed into their nice evening attire and just retired to their room for the night and for the rest of the and for their life. A lot of people accepted the fate, and I believe a couple of them were the big dogs that were on board.
Well, yeah, I know
And the
that's
music,
like
you
part of
you
the
and
the
you and
story, but
Melissa obviously were talking about the music in the background, and we all know about the musicians that were continuing to play as the ship went down. Some people found a comfort in that, and that's pretty eerie.
yeah, but I don't think they knew. I mean, everybody kind of felt a bump when they drug along the iceberg on her side, but I don't think they really knew the extent of the damage
No, no one did.
Until it was too late.
Yeah, yep.
because the crew was not communicating that to people. And I
Hmm.
think that a lot of people were just ready to retire for the night. Maybe they had had too much to drink, or they were done gambling, or it was time to go snuggle up with your partner and, have some fun, whatever. And it was just time for them to retire. I don't think that they really knew that the ship was getting ready to go down. I personally, I don't think I could just go lay in my quarters if I know that the ship is getting ready to sink. I'd be climbing down the side of it doing something. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
your fight or flight kicks in. So I don't know that too many people could actually come to that resolve to just go lay down and go to sleep. Now the captain knew the ship was going down. And he knew he was going down with his ship, and he did go lock himself in the captain's quarters, and that's where they found his body, in the captain's quarters. And several people reported him just kinda going and locking himself in. By the time he realized that it was too late, there was nothing he could do, and this man was, like, weeks from retirement. He was ready to retire, you know? But you're not gonna get to retire with your full pension over something like this happening as your last voyage, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then he already had the Olympic thing
Mm-hmm.
under his belt right before this that he was blaming himself for, that I still feel like it wasn't his fault. It was nefarious people working underneath of you. Because I mean, yeah, your captain has to be very good. He has to know the navigation paths. He's got to understand what kind of things are going to be laying in the water, underneath of the water. I mean, I used to watch my dad do this. He would map it all out before he took a voyage, right? Because especially with rivers, every time the rain comes or a flood happens, it changes the way that the riverbanks lay and stuff. And so you've got to know where all of the uneven earth underneath the water is so that you can navigate around that and not run a land, right?
Right.
You don't want to
Ground.
hit high ground. So captains have a very extensive job. But with that being said, you're only as good as the crew that's underneath of you, because your crew has to know their shit too, and they have to be able to follow orders and actually do what the captain tells them. And these people clearly were not following the captain's orders. I mean, whoever opened those doors, that was, I mean, even if, like Mike says, it's pouring in the walls and stuff, you would still want to keep those doors shut best you could. Why would you just leave them wide damn open? You know, that's just going to help the water to come in even quicker. So I do feel like part of the crew was to blame for this. I think that they helped this aristocrat dude to get this job done. And I mean, clearly it worked because they survived. 200 crew members survived, right? And
I'd
we
be
went on.
interested. I would be interested to know if any of those crew members kind of became a little more wealthy after that. That would be an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing to check into. Did they come into some money after the sinking of the Titanic?
That's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
follow the money, right?
Yep.
Because it's always about money at the end of the day. There had to have been some kind of kickback for them to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. But
And
you're right, Mike. At the end of all of it, it's still just the same song and dance and history repeating itself of the powers that be trying to gain control of the people.
yeah, and if you
We're
think
at it today.
that this all sounds silly, what we're saying by suggesting that it was an inside job, um, if you don't think, we have suicidal tendencies, that wasn't even necessary. Like you said, there was 200 people that survived. If you know that something like this is going to happen, you have the advantage. Uh, you can go in and do your job and have enough confidence to be reassured that you're going to make it. So you're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily going in there kamikaze.
Yeah, right.
If you're concerned that how are you going to find enough bozos to pull that off? Well, if you assure these bozos that they're going to have a lifeboat to themselves,
Yep.
why not? And
Yep.
then, like Melissa said, I'm
And yeah,
wondering, where are they now? I mean, you
right.
know,
Look
Obviously,
where
they're
they
dead now,
afterwards.
right,
but
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
Where were they after
how
that?
well, yeah, how well did they fare
Right,
afterwards? And following some money is a good extra dive on this for sure.
right.
But it's interesting to me how it literally does not matter what topic we choose. It always ends up coming back around to the same scenarios in the conclusions that we are definitely fighting against powers of evil. And I'm just going to continue to walk in faith and keep hope that we are going to finally defeat the dark, evil fleet, if you will, since we're speaking in boat terms, right? The evil fleet. And that we're going to finally get relief from all of this, because this didn't just start with the Titanic and it didn't end there either.
No.
I mean, we ended up with several presidential assassination attempts since then, and 9/11, and tons of school shootings and church shootings, and assassination of Charlie Kirk. They're every which way that they go, they're trying to silence our voices and control the masses and control our real desire to truly be free from this elite power. And I'm just going to continue to walk in that faith and that hope that Three Eye Atlas is bringing the energy and the change that we need to finally succeed in all
Yeah.
of this coming about finally.
Agree with that. They can't silence us all.
Right.
They can try, but they won't succeed.
I was thinking, a lot of people are homeschooling. What's next? Home churching.
Yep. Good old fashioned revival in the yard. Pitch a tent and have your neighbors come over and have church with you.
Didn't Trump just recently do something with this whole maritime law too?
I've heard whispers of that, but I haven't looked into it. What do you think you know about it? Tell me.
I think there was a lot of corruption within the maritime law. Just
Oh,
it's kind of
100%.
similar with the whole District of Columbia thing.
Yes.
Kind of went hand in hand.
Yes.
Similar reasons. I don't know the details, but I believe it was another chess move, another brilliant chess move. That if you don't know what's going on, then it doesn't really bother you or it doesn't really interest you. But those of us that have been paying attention, you just have a feeling that it's another brilliant chess move that we'll see a little bit down the road why it was done.
Yeah, everything he does is a chess move. He doesn't do anything
Absolutely.
without purpose.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. And you might be onto something there, because I've just recently been researching this whole Bitcoin thing a little more extensively, because I've always been very against any kind of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency kind of stuff. But Trump did do something recently where he is creating an American blockchain Bitcoin that he swore would not have anything to do with the centralized banks, that they wouldn't be able to have their own Bitcoin or stock in it, so to speak. And it's going to be backed by gold. So this may be his way to move us back into gold back dollars and overthrow the Federal Reserve once and for all. So, here's hoping, right?
And
Right.
here's to us picking the right assignment as well. It just still seems like it's a book that we're reading, the story.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're reading a story that just keeps going to the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter
Yeah,
in
it's
all
like
4 episodes we've had now. Like
right.
they
They're all
all
connected. They're all connected.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was just like those books, Kelly, that I was telling you about. Choose Your Own Adventure. Some people remember those books when I was growing up. Choose Your Own Adventure. Turn to page 56 if you agree that you want to go for the Federal Reserve. turn to page 54 if you disagree.
I remember those books.
Yeah, and you would finish it and you would go, I want to see what happens if I would have made this choice or that choice. And that's how kind of we've been choosing our own adventure, and it seems to be right on point.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because we didn't even settle on doing the Titanic until what, Thursday?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter how we settle upon it. If it's sporadic or if it's something we kind of bank on a little late, it
Yep.
just doesn't seem to matter.
It
I
comes
know.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're being divinely guided. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. We're being divinely guided from one topic to the next, to not only for people that are watching, but for us as well to see how all of this is truly unfolding.
And when I seen all the bulkheads and the watertight dog zebra doors, I automatically thought, hey, I'm a sailor. That's why, I was in the Navy. We had drills all the time. General quarters, all hands heave deck. We would zebra dog tight those doors. That was drilled into our head. And and then to do research and to learn about Thomas Andrew, the chief engineer, the chief designer. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's working, it's working. It's just amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy cool um how much we're learning and how much we piece together and how it fits with each of the other things. And I'm guilty of the same thing there, Mike, where I was seeing things that I thought were just relatable because of my own
Right.
experience. So I was
Yep.
trying to like push them over and not look at them and not think about them.
Yep.
And I mean, I've done that so many times with different things. Even, when I first started hearing dead people talk to me, I just thought this must be my imagination, right? This must be me thinking that this is what they would say or whatever, until I learned to trust it. And the more I trust it, then the more information would come to me. And it's the same way with this. I mean, we are always learning how to trust that intuition when it comes to us. And I really love that about this. I like to call it an experiment. I feel like we're doing an experiment, right? Into reality itself, the real reality.
Hmm.
And we're sort of teaching people as we go. Everyone that watches, they get a crash course lesson in how this reality is really working and unfolding, because we are using our intuition, and then we do research to back up what we're seeing to see if there's any kind of cooperation for it. And each one of us always come to the table with a different set of information and a different set of research. I mean, like, we rarely ever are all talking about the exact same things, right? We always have this extra
Yeah.
Yeah.
flavor,
Yeah. I
right?
was
Right.
tripping because I thought, what in the world does mail floating around and dogs barking and crying have to do with
Yeah,
the
that blew me
Titanic?
away.
Like,
Yeah,
what does
that
that have? But I'm like, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to trust it. And the key thing, I'm like,
jeez.
I don't even know what this key means, but I'm going to put it down, but I'm not going to mention it because I couldn't back it up. But it's just weird how it all comes together, like bits and pieces. Because I don't know, it's just crazy. And the little boy. I think didn't we watched that like those clips years ago about this little boy, but never put two and two together until we started researching and doing this show. So I don't know. It's kind of
Yeah,
trippy to
that
me.
blew me away when Melissa, when you were talking about the dogs. That's just unbelievable. I had no idea
I
that they
didn't
had a
either.
little kennel on board.
I
Oh
didn't
my
either.
God.
Or mail. Like, that's
Right.
so crazy to me. Like, there was
I
mail?
seen I seen the RMS or whatever Melissa was talking about. Like I seen that in front of the word Titanic when
But
I
never
was,
knew what it was.
yeah, I had no idea or interest into thinking, um
Yeah, it's kind of like the boats that have USS, right? I mean, they all have like a three-letter thing in
right.
front of their name.
Yeah,
So,
right. Or yeah, right. So that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies that went along with this thing, even back then. They were having a conspiracy about the actual number of the ship itself. if you put it in a mirror, it said no Pope. You know, the number.
Oh,
It's
What?
but there's just a lot of different theories. What did I write on here? Oh, okay, yeah, the number 3909 space 04. If you look at that in the mirror, it looks like it's saying no Pope. Um, and something like you said in the beginning, Kelly, buried. This stuff was buried at the crime scene. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like 9/11. My whole thing with that assignment was I saw a lot of powdered cement, just pulverized powdered cement. And a
Mhm.
lot of that proof was in the pudding. Melissa remembers me saying that.
mm-hmm.
The proof was in the pudding. The proof was in that cement. Uh,
Yep.
the proof was the same was for the Titanic, uh, but that was easily buried.
Yep.
And it wasn't buried in the ground, it was buried
Yeah.
in the ocean in one of the most challenging places that we would ever find. It was 1985, I believe, before we were able to see some actual pictures of it physically, what it looked like down there.
Yeah, and you can't move it. You can't do anything with it because it'll fall
Right.
apart.
Yeah, you could just all you gotta do is swim by, and all of a sudden you've got shoes that where people had their final resting spot just kind of floated around because that's how long it had been.
Mm-hmm.
That was a graveyard. It was buried at the crime scene.
Yeah. It was definitely a graveyard. And I just want to ask your all's opinion on this because this really disturbed me. Well, first, let me back up and say, uh, Missy brought up that her and I found the little boy's story about the reincarnation thing a couple years ago. And when I put that in the group for you all to watch, we didn't even watch that. Like, we didn't watch that again. Um, and actually, she didn't even watch the one that I played the clip of with the man from 1985 that found it. She forgot to watch that one even.
Yeah, I
So
didn't watch them either. I'm sorry to say. Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. Um, but yeah, that particular video, um, when I was looking for the part of the clip that I wanted to play, it was talking about how the shoes were found in pairs. And that really still disturbs me. Like, what are your all's thoughts on that? How did pairs of shoes end up on the ocean floor beside each other?
Because there were bodies in them.
Yep.
There were bodies in them when they sank,
Yep.
and that's where they stayed until either the fish ate them or they just disintegrated.
The decay. Yeah.
Yep. It nothing was disturbed until
I
until
tell
these
you.
submarines started getting close enough and disturbing the water around it. Just like you go and put your hand into a fish tank and you didn't realize there was something going on in that plant with that dead fish, and then all of a sudden, just the waves of the water just moves it all around. It wasn't disturbed.
Right. Yeah. And that's disturbing.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really disturbing, in my opinion. You know, the pairs of shoes and stuff. I feel like, and I said this to Missy because she came in the room and saw me all emotional and crying and stuff. And she's like, "What's going on with you?" And I'm like, I feel like my old body was still there for a really long time on the bottom of the ocean floor. I was just there. Nobody knew. Nobody ever spoke of me again.
Yeah. Quiet. It's a
Yeah.
whole nother level of quiet.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sad. It's really sad. It's a really sad story. It's a really sad event. So many people's voices were silenced and no one to ever speak of them again. And even their grave didn't even get a name put on it. You know, there's no name on so many graves. No date of birth, no nothing, just the date they died.
I still don't understand that because you would think that the ship would have I guess you call it a manifesto, maybe, of
Log.
everybody that was
Yeah.
on that ship.
Yeah, they
Like
do.
they would at least have the names to put somewhere. Why aren't they anywhere? Like it could just be one stone that's got all the names on it. But you don't know which is which because, of course, you don't have the body, or the body you can't identify. But you still know who was on it, and their name should be documented somewhere to tell that they were a part of that. Like, at the cemetery or whatever. I don't understand how you can just forget about people like that.
And
I
they
just
have
don't.
that museum. I'm a big Ghost Adventures fan, and one of the episodes on Ghost Adventures is they visit this Titanic museum that has it's a down to scale size of the actual Titanic. The actual staircase, where you first walk in the main entrance, and you've got your dual beautiful staircases that spiral up to the first few decks. Well,
Mhm.
that actual part of the room is to scale. But after you leave that area, the museum is actually scaled down very small. But this museum is haunted. It's haunted, so haunted, from the actual passengers that passed away in this catastrophe. And it's nowhere near the Titanic itself. It's
They
because of
need to
all
be
the
freed.
items. There's a lot of items that were brought up from the bottom of the ocean.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And yeah, these objects are placed into this museum, and this museum is haunted.
100%. I guarantee it. Because for anyone watching that doesn't understand this, we call our belongings our possessions for a reason. There's a reason for all of the words that we use. They are our possessions because alchemically we have imbued a piece of our spirit into them. Like this is my brown coffee cup that I use all the time. This is I own 15 coffee cups, but this is the one I'm going to drink out of every day. It's my favorite. Actually, I have two because I have a backup for when this one gets washed. But they're from the bar that I owned, and they hold the coffee hot for a long time, so they're my favorite cup.
Right.
It's imbued with my essence. This is my coffee cup. When I
Yep.
die, somebody
You're
could
going to
have this
possess
coffee
it.
cup and it's going to be possessed
Yep.
with my energy. It will.
Yep.
Everything that I own that I hold dear to me, all of my trinkets will have my possessed energy in them, right? They are our
Right.
possessions. We
Right.
alchemically imbue everything that we own or everywhere we've lived or anything like that, right? So there's always going to be residual energy
Mhm.
there, even if the body isn't there, right?
Yep.
Especially in like a traumatic situation like this, where those would be the clothes or the last articles of possessions that they had before death, right? All of that trauma and that fear and that energy is immediately put into that stuff to stay there
You
forever.
you know what I just thought of too was, among the theories that I came across, another one was the mummy curse. There was some Egyptian artifacts that were actually being transferred from France to New York that may have very well caused a curse as well.
You mean they were on board the Titanic?
Yes, there were some ancient Egyptian artifacts.
Yep, I've seen that too.
Really?
Mhm.
I
Yep,
knew nothing of this. That's interesting.
just crossed my eye because we're big Egyptian fans. Anything that I
Yeah.
see the Egyptian, I'm just all over it.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't know anything about that. That's very interesting. I don't know how I feel about that just yet. I mean, huh,
There was just so many. There were so many different theories.
right? I wonder why was it on the ship with all of those people though? I mean, well, like what kind of artifacts were those? Do you know?
Art museum. They were bound for a museum, and that's not out of ordinary to stow away something just for the heck of it. Hey, you guys are on your way. You got space. You might as well. It's not unheard of to do things like that. It's not going to hurt anybody. But if you would have asked me, if you would have told me that there was some ancient mummy Egyptian artifacts on board, being a superstitious person like myself, would
I'd be like,
maybe second guess even going.
Right. But I'm wondering, are those artifacts also on the seafloor, or did they get
Oh,
stolen.
wow. Yeah,
stolen?
I didn't wow, sink that deep into that actual fact there. That's a very good question. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
maybe that had something to do with it all too.
I'm going to
Like a
find
win
that out.
like a win-win kind of. That's why I asked, do you know what kind of artifacts it was?
It was bound for a museum in New York, so I am very interested in
Where did they go, and what maybe like what kind of stuff was it, you know?
well, it was your typical Egyptian artifacts, like some of the stuff that was found in the tomb. Uh,
So it was like burial things.
yeah, some real. Um,
See.
Yeah, see, they took those. Those were stolen.
Yeah.
Somebody made some money on top of shutting people up so they can do the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me, and I'm still kind of mind blown that I didn't know anything about that part of it. But I mean, like all the other subjects that we've done, um, Titanic's not something that I really knew a whole lot about, other than the basic narrative story that everybody gets spoon fed, you know,
Yep, and the movie. Watching that movie.
and the movie. But I mean, I knew the movie was just like
Right, but I'm saying
romanticized,
that's what I
you know.
that's what I knew about it. The movie,
right.
basically.
It was the love story. Yeah, it was
Yes.
a
Yeah,
love story.
yeah, it was a nice love story. It was a good movie, you
Yeah,
know,
beautiful.
really beautiful movie. But definitely more fantastic than what really happened. I would assume.
Yeah, I never jumped. I never like really like went into the Titanic and like examined it and wondered what happened. None of that. Like it was just what I heard is what I heard,
Yep,
type of thing.
Right.
same.
It's kind of interesting that the star of that movie is now also a member of the World Economic Forum with Klaus Schwab. You
Hmm.
know, what's his name?
Leonardo
Yeah.
DiCaprio.
DiCaprio.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting that he would be the star as a young boy, be the star of the movie that really is a tragic, nefarious story of one world government control trying to defeat us. And then he ends up a member of the very one world government control that's trying to impede us.
And he was very picky from what I gathered on what movies he decided to work with too, as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's interesting synchronicity there too. I don't believe in coincidences, like at all. I don't believe in coincidence.
Actually, if you think about it, that movie was a huge distraction uh, by placing it as a love story like it was.
Mhm.
Right, it
They
was.
they put it in our face like they need to, and they also steered the narrative just where they want it.
Yeah, and what year did that movie come out, I wonder?
Oh man, it's like almost. Oh my God, I'm getting old. Uh, I think it was over 25 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's
Jeez.
been out a while.
I'm looking it up. 97.
That's the year my oldest son was born. That's 27 years old. That's 27 years old. Going on 28.
Yeah. I just wondered if the year it came out had anything to do with a distraction, but I don't know of anything really in 97 that happened that would have been a distraction from anything else. But it did certainly take away from the real narrative, and even, the controversy that the American government and the British Parliament both came to the conclusion on back then in 1912, that this was a nefarious act. So yeah, it romanticized it and took the attention off of that completely. And really, I mean, even like I didn't know that anybody did an inquisition on it at the time until last night when I was looking for research to back up the things that I was seeing in my vision, in my experience. So I don't guess it's really even common knowledge that such an investigation occurred for most of us, 100 years later.
Mhm.
It's funny. Yeah, I remember when I first dove into the remote view, I started seeing like art, but it wasn't Egyptian art. It was like stained glass paintings, or it was like a framed object that had a pinwheel type of stained glass look to it. And it's just amazing thinking back now and realizing after I did the research after that, I found out about the Egyptian artifacts that were being transported to a museum in New York. I was like, oh my God, I was seeing some stupid little things like artifacts for a museum. Like maybe it wasn't all Egyptian, it was just art in general.
Right. Yeah. I love it when we get those little hits and then we're like, I don't know if that really means something. And then it's like,
Yeah.
Eureka.
I'm like, what am I looking at? It looks like some kind of pinwheel, what do you call it? Telescope type of stuff. You
Oh, a
remember that?
Yeah,
kaleidoscope?
so
Yeah, that was like when I first closed my eyes and I started going under into my mind's eye. I'm like, I'm looking for ship stuff, you know,
Right.
and I'm seeing
And you're seeing a kaleidoscope.
pinwheel
You're like,
stained
what?
glass telescope stuff, and then later I see the Egyptian artifacts, and I'm like, well, I wonder if that was some of the
Ah,
stuff I'm seeing. Why do we
yeah.
get to see some of the small details, like Melissa and
Yeah.
her dogs?
And the
That
key. And the
and the
key
key.
even. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I love it. I love it how we all have those extra pieces to
it
add
completes
to.
it completes another person's story.
Yeah. And it really completes like the whole story, right? Because we didn't know those things. We didn't, that's not something that was written in the newspaper articles
No,
or that anybody
Yeah,
taught
right.
us
Who
in
wants to
history or
come?
anything?
Yeah, right. No one wants to come up here and read word for word from what they gathered. you know,
right.
Heck, we're doing some deep diving in ourselves, and we're trusting it, and we're
Yeah,
sharing that. We're putting it out on the line, and that's scary. It is.
it
But
is.
we've all three of us have reached a point where we're like, screw it, man. I'm
Yeah,
throwing it out
Yep.
there. We're taking a
100%.
chance, and we're doing it together.
Right. Yeah. And I love that.
I do too.
And I love that Jen brought the numerology into it this time too. Now she did do an intuitive thing, and I am sorry that I didn't get to play that. She sent it to the wrong thing, and she was at work and wasn't able to send it to me the right way, but that's okay. We'll get it next time. But the numerology part of it, it was so interesting to me the way that she went about that, looking at like its creation date and then its launch date and its sync date and all those different, that was very intuitively guided for her to
Hmm.
look at these different dates that way and then see what they mean numerology speaking, numerologically, um, for the nefarious stuff, because in her intuitive thing, she did feel like there was some kind of tampering with instruments and that this was some kind of a nefarious plot. So And that's just to, sum it up really short. But even the numerology of it comes to the same conclusion
Mm-hmm.
that we all had on this, that this was a planned, nefarious event. So it's just so cool to me. It's so cool. So cool. And I say bravo to everyone. We did such a grand job.
Oh, darling.
I'm excited. I'm excited for our next adventure.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that, because we don't even know.
Nope.
They just come to us when they come to us, and then we vote on it and we go with it.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm excited too. I love what we're doing here as a group and as a family, and even the showing it to the world and showing that they too can do these things, because nobody's had any real, what you'd call, disciplined lessons on any of this, right? We're just trusting it and flying by the seat of our pants. And I love that. Um, and also, in closing, before we go, I truly want to give a heartwarmed condolence to everyone involved in today's mass shooting and the burning down of the Mormon church in Michigan. My heart and my prayers, I'm sure all of our hearts and prayers go out to all of you who have been affected by this. And that includes everyone who is just simply aware of it, because there is a real evil trying to blanket our world and blanket our country. And I want everyone to stand firm in your faith that good wins.
Absolutely.
God wins.
Yeah.
And we love you, and we're thinking about you all. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with me, both of you. And we will see you again on the next Beyond the Veil.